Hey guys, Andrew here from the Commando cast, here with
Alex.
So we are today we're doing a quick hit. We're actually filming from Gun Guy Games, not our normal spot, and we're going to do a quick hit on the organized play changes, worlds changes, and everything that was just announced last week. Alright guys, so last Friday, late in the day, Fantasy Flight Games announced that there's going to be some changes to the Star Wars organized play for all of their games, but we're here of course to talk specifically about Destiny. So basically what does that announcement say, Alex?
So basically the announcement, at least as it pertains to Destiny, is that while there is no set date yet, Worlds is going to be in Q4 2019, which was a change from, I believe it's in mid-May of this year. So really just that time frame, which hasn't been announced. I think probably maybe October.
I mean, anywhere from October to December.
December right? Will be the new Worlds date.
So what do you think about that?
I think it's interesting, and I know, and sort of to understand it, it probably needs to go back to the history, right, of Destiny. There's a very long set release between Empire War and Legacy is probably the longest and one of the most talked about in Destiny's history, as far as sort of the drought of new cards, new material coming out. And so they sort of changed that to hit a more regular release schedule. I think they've aimed, or they've at least announced to say they're going to try to hit the 3 sets per year, or at least maybe they've even guaranteed it.
They've very much committed to it.
Right. And so I think this is probably the second foot coming down of, okay, if we're going to change the release structure to do 3 a year of the sets, we're going to have to change organized play around, because the Worlds being in the middle of May would have aligned pretty strangely. I think with the next set, it really would have been rotation into Worlds, which is sort of probably not a great spot that anyone really wants to be in.
Yeah, exactly. So then there's 4 sets legal for Worlds, right? Or at least for the standard Worlds. And then, you know, the other part is, since they're doing this on its own, maybe we can actually get some other formats for Worlds, right? But since standard is going to be the primary driver of what's happening here, it makes sense to have Worlds when there's 6 legal sets, right, at the end of a rotation. So them committing to this for at least 2019, and I mean, we always make the assumption that things are going to be the same going forward, which may or may not be valid, right? But them doing this, at least, I think it brings more than just the OP portion of it. It pretty much commits them to getting on the set release schedule, which I think is great. So,
and I think with the changes, I think it was end of December, the director or vice president of the organized play had stepped down, and I believe 2 people had stepped in to replace that individual. So I think it's sort of hearkening the changes of internal OP changes at FFG, which I think historically, not just in Destiny, but in all games, has sort of been lackluster, or at least criticized, right?
Yeah. And then the other advantage of the timing in Q4 is it puts Worlds behind, or after, I should say, Gen Con and Nova, which serves as the U.S. Nationals at least, right? So I know from like a Nationals across the globe standpoint, it doesn't necessarily really change much, because those are happening year round, right? But from a U.S. standpoint, being behind Gen Con and Nationals really almost lets it lead up to being Worlds, as opposed to how it was now, which is like Worlds, and then we kind of flub around for a month, and then it's Store Championships, and then Gen Con, Nova, PAX, all hit.
And I think now, and ideally, I know X-Wing has a sort of leading up into the end of the year, or leading up to when their Worlds is, and I think now we're sort of on that schedule. So you have regionals, I guess Store Championships are sort of out of place there, but it sort of is a natural progression into Worlds, and sort of having Worlds in the middle of the year sort of was a weird, I guess, weird place to have it, considering all the other events that are going on during the year.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I think that the implications of it are really good. What was interesting, though, is they did say that they're still going to leave it open for registration.
Right. So they'll have the lottery system, or at least the registration online, presumably the same.
Right. So, but we'll see how many spots are open for the first one, because you're going to have a lot of people who have qualified and would have qualified for May, but now you have an extra 4 to 5 months of qualification period, whatever.
Right. So I think now, there'll be 2 U.S. nationals, that qualify for the same World Championship.
That's true.
So the person, or the people that just qualified in whenever it was, the last
October.
In October, now have to wait, what is that, a year and 6 months or so, or a year and 4 months for the Worlds, depending on what the timing of it is.
Yeah,
which is
and maybe it was late September, whatever, right? But once you really start thinking about the timeline, I think you're looking at Worlds being in probably early November, because I think it would be very hard to do it into November because it's holidays, right? And then generally doing anything between Thanksgiving and Christmas, at least in the U.S., becomes very...
Yeah, I think late October, early November is probably the most reasonable. FFG can do things that are maybe not reasonable all the time, so hopefully it's not December 26th, but I think early November, late October, I think is probably the most likely.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know that it changes anything on a day-to-day basis for most people, but for those who are looking at the high-level competition, I think it's a big deal, and I think it's a positive change, right? I mean, I was wondering how Worlds was going to be, because Worlds was really going to be the first big tournament, barring like GQs,
right?
With the new set out, and that's kind of weird. So I like the new format. You've got several big tournaments to lead up into it, and I think it kind of puts a period on the block of what it
right. And I think just a natural conclusion to a set or a set rotating out versus it being the first thing with the set. So I think it had to change, and I'm glad that they're taking it head on early instead of sort of letting it slide until later. I think it'll maybe have interesting impact on Store Championships. Maybe not this year, but maybe after that.
Could Store Championships move? I mean, I haven't played Fantasy Flight games long enough. I mean, I think Store Championship season is always during the summer.
So I
mean, there's no rule that says it has to be.
And this is just complete, not even speculation, but just I think maybe an ideal state is I wish they would do Store Championships every single release and then modify their quarterly kits with those prizes.
I see.
And just modify that and have that for every Store Championship. Maybe not have a mat every single time because that's probably a lot of work, but sort of modify those quarterly rewards to be in the Store Championship and then do Store Championships every single release. And then that sort of can be spread out during the year and then end it with Worlds instead of having one Store Championship.
Yeah, that's an interesting. And then the store would just buy like the Legacies kit, and it would come with 10 weeklies or whatever. Yeah, that's an idea, but we'll see what we get. Right? Alex isn't in charge of OP OP yet, so anyway, I think that's it. We just wanted to do a quick hit and talk about the recent news. So Alex, do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
All right, go Commando.
Go Commandos.